by, and the shipping forecasts were a fixture of Radio 4 Longwave for decades, as were Test Match Special, Yesterday in Parliament and the Daily Service. All have moved to other homes on BBC Radio in recent years, and this Saturday, June the 27th, the BBC Longwave network finally closes.
Yes, the 3 transmitter stations at Droitwich in Worcestershire and Westerglen and Berghead in Scotland will all cease operation, so it's very much the end of an era, and we're going to look at this era with the help of Jeffrey Berinsky, a broadcast historian. Jeffrey, welcome to the media show. Right, let's start right at the beginning. What is longwave, and when did the BBC start using it?
Well, longwave, as the name implies, is very long waves. In the case of the Droitwich transmitter carrying Radio 4, it's 1,500 metres, just shy of a mile. And the unique property of these long waves is that they can travel very long distances. They bend round the Earth quite easily. And if you have enough power in the transmitter, and that often means a lot of power, 500 kilowatts in the case of Droitwich, 500 one-bar fires, and a very big aerial, 200 metres high, 700 feet, and a lot of wire. To launch those long waves, you need big aerials. They can reach a long distance. And the BBC started broadcasting, in fact, from Daventry, in 1925, when BBC stood for the British Broadcasting Company, before it became the corporation. Then in 1934, they moved to Droitwich, which they chose carefully as a good site near the centre of the kingdom, so that one station could cover the entire country. Although, as Ros, you just said, it needed a little reinforcement from a couple of stations in Scotland.
So you had these incredibly powerful masts, able to broadcast hundreds of miles away. For the people very close to those masts, presumably they must have been getting exceptional reception.
Well, it could be an embarrassment at times. It wasn't unknown if you had, for rusty drain pipes or fences, or there are even stories, which should be true, about people's fillings working as crude radio receivers and picking up the radio if you're near the transmitter, whether it's Droitwich Longwave or Brooklands Park Medium Wave or one of the others.
So you'd have had Radio 4 coming out of your drain pipe?
Yes,
or your mouth.
Or even your mouth. That was really embarrassing. I've read about it.
Can it be true?
It is more than urban myth, I reckon.
Interesting. And you've got a long-wave radio with you here on the media show table, a beautiful thing for people listening. Just describe it to us, please.
It's made by, am I allowed to say the maker's name?
Definitely, sir.
Made by Murphy in 1969, when in Japan they weren't making them in England anymore. And it is about, 10 inches wide, portable with a handle, 2 knobs on the front, one for volume, one for tuning.
And I can just make out the knobs on the top. VHS, and then you've got an S for shortwave, L for longwave,
and M for medium wave.
And there's a car on the
that is so that you can plug a car radio aerial into it and use it in your car, in theory. That's a story for another day.
and we better get to the point of why it's going. Why has it outlived its usefulness?
Right. There were things that longwave can do. It can reach parts that others can't. So if you're out walking or driving in the Scottish Highlands, where realistically you are not going to get mobile phone coverage, you are not going to get DAB, you are not going to get FM, you still can get longwave. And people like that will be disenfranchised. Yeah, a few people will lose. It's not like the digital switch-off back 2012-13, where there was a huge effort to ensure that people could still receive analog switch-off, where people could still receive digital TV. I don't know what the residual audience is on longwave, but it's probably quite small, but I'm speculating.
And what does the BBC say about why it's shutting these transmitters down?
Right, the BBC doesn't actually own its transmitters. In 1997, the whole transmitter network was privatised, and so whether you're listening on long wave, medium wave, VHF, FM, DAB, Freeview, whatever, the BBC does not own the transmitters that are sending that out to you. The BBC buys transmission as a service from a private company and pays the company a certain amount to keep each transmitter running. I'm not privy to commercial details on this, and the BBC has decided that it's no longer worth paying for that company to keep the Droitwich transmitter running. There's no reason, if it wanted to pay the money, and the will was there, yes, of course it could do it.
And I should, just say that the BBC said the long-wave infrastructure is owned and operated by a third party who have advised us the platform is now coming to an end. The end of its life as a technology. Continuing would require significant investment to replace aging equipment and sustain a platform now used by a very small proportion of listeners. And it says no programs will be lost as a result.
That sounds realistic.
And I'm curious, I'm not going to do an actual test here, but if you were to turn on your long-wave radio here, or let's imagine next week when everything's been turned off and went along, would you find anything to listen to at all now the BBC's not using it?
Well, there are 5 countries still broadcasting on long-wave, all in Europe and Asia. America never used long-wave.
This is a very difficult pub quiz question, isn't it?
I had to look it up. Algeria, Mongolia, Morocco, Poland and Romania. You stand a fair chance of getting Poland or Romania with a good radio. This one wouldn't get it. It's really not up to it. You'd need a decent aerial and a good radio. But it's possible. The long waves can cover vast distances.
And do you feel any regret at the end of this?
Of course I do. We're coming to the end of long wave, even medium wave, which was a stalwart for so many years. That's coming to an end. The only BBC national service left there is 5 Live. Plus a load of local radio stations.
And Katie and I have been fretting in the office before today's programme that if we were in some sort of apocalyptic scenario and long wave weren't on, would we be at a disadvantage? Is this development making us less prepared?
In theory, yes, but an awful lot of people don't have long-wave radios anymore. Most car radios don't cover long-wave. Most radios you can get today, you're lucky if they've got medium-wave, let alone long-wave.
But a few of us do, and would we be better off in the apocalypse? That's
possibly.
My fear.
I mean, preparing for the apocalypse, we're losing our landline, the old-fashioned landline phones. That's another thing that's apocalypse-proof. So who knows? We don't know what the apocalypse will bring.
Well, I've got a medium-wave radio in my shed, which still goes on, and it looks like you're still using your radio here.
Well, I'm still using it on VHF FM. I have to say, when I pressed the long-wave button, it didn't work. And I'd have to open it up and have a play inside.
Now you tell us, Jeffrey.
And I'd have to have a play inside. Of course I can make it work. I'm an engineer.
Jeffrey, thank you so much. That's Jeffrey Borinsky with his fabulous radio.
And the switching off of long wave brings to an end this edition of the Media Show. For both of us.
You're listening to BBC Radio 4 on 198 kHz longwave. This service is closing. BBC transmissions on this frequency will end on the 27th of June this year. However, you can continue to listen in many other ways. You can find BBC Radio 4 online via BBC Sounds. Radio 4 is available on DAB, digital radio, and through your digital television, including Freely. Radio 4 is also available via FM radio on 92 to 95 MHz and 103 to 105 MHz. Plus, you can listen via your smart speaker. Just say, play Radio 4. Information on how to listen can be found on the BBC website at bbc.co.uk/reception.